Hi, friend. Good to be with you. I'm Quynn Red Mountain, and I'm founder of Web of Life Animist and also the caretaker of Web of Life Animist Network. Thank you for being here. And I wanted to talk a bit about part of my history of being in this role, being this person that I am, and that also I have worked with enough people to know that it is an issue with quite a few of us, which is the difference between shamanism, shamanic, and animist and animism. Different. Okay. So when I started in this part of my life, I was in my mid 20s and I had an experience where I was hit on the head. And then the head injury brought forth a bunch of things. So I started from that experience having like visions and dreams and also hearing voices, which I know in this culture can be problematic or people think that it's a pathology, but for most of us, it is absolutely not. We have so many voices in our head from culture, from parents, from school, different versions of ourselves. So, just to say that it's not a bad thing or really an unusual thing, but it can be quite dramatic of literally hearing others in our heads. So, anyway, back to my story. So, when I was hit on the head, it opened up this whole thing of these voices that started guiding me, started telling me what to do and how to, not what to do as in command hallucinations, but decoding what was happening for me, because I started plummeting down a tunnel and in my mind, and I didn't know what was happening there. And then this being that had just come to me in a dream showed up. I felt their presence, and they said, "Keep practicing, and you'll learn how to do it." Okay, do what? And then I told someone that, and they handed me this book called The Way of the Shaman by Michael Harner, who has passed on now. But he was an anthropologist, and he worked with or studied a number of indigenous people around the planet. And the theme of this role in a community, that he used the word shaman. And and then he went through some training and learned about it and such. And then he started the Foundation for Shamanic Studies and so multiple other things, wrote the Way of the Shaman and other books and such. So that book was what turned me on to the fact that what was going on with me with this tunnel and voices was something to not be afraid of. The tunnel that I was experiencing was in the book. That's how these shaman people would get from the physical world to the spirit world and back. And I was like, wow. I mean, I had no idea about any of this stuff. And it was very impactful. And so I, even at the very beginning, a voice came and said to me in my head, "You are Ula, Oolah. You are Ula, one who balances." Hmm. Now, for quite some time, I didn't know what to do with that word or that name. And so I didn't talk about it. But what it did do is it made me have a real feeling that I had been given a name for my role. And so I never felt compelled to take on the role or take on the word shaman myself. And then, but what I did do, and then I started, sorry, I had all these pieces to the story. And then I started putting together by the guidance by these voices. They said, start piecing together what is happening for you now as you're learning, and then find a way to share them with others, because this kind of thing is happening to other people and they will be interested. Okay. So I did start using the word shamanic journey, like to a drum or a rattle, shamanic practitioner, uh, shamanic drumming, those kinds of words. I didn't use shamanism too much. I didn't use the word shaman for me, but a lot of other people were using that. And so then for years, I hosted shamanic journey circles, and starting in 2003 going forward until I changed the name in like 2017 or so, I would do shamanic practitioner trainings. But I never studied traditionally with a lineage. Even I didn't study with Michael Harner. I did one weekend workshop, one day of a weekend workshop um, back in the early days, but it wasn't really for me because I kept getting very direct guidance from internal sources, and I was to follow those because what was happening for me was not around a particular cultural approach to quote shamanizing. It was more of, well, what are the themes? These are direct teachings that I received. What are the themes that run through all human cultures? They're called different things. They may look different ways, but what are these themes? Focus on those. Don't focus on a particular cultural approach because that's not your lane. Okay. One thing I started noticing over the years was how people would decide that they wanted to do these practices and learn about them. And there were lots of workshops and trainings and all kinds of things, yes. And that they would start calling themselves shamans. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me. So I just didn't. And then there's another guy, another white man named Nick Breezewood. And he is a Siberian, Mongolian, traditionally trained shamanic practitioner, also a Buddhist, and he lives in Wales. And he has been making a magazine called Sacred Hoop for many years, honoring and decoding or sharing traditional shamanic practices as well as animistic practices and from different places around the world. And he is very colorful. He has a Facebook group that's quite good. It's called Three World Shamanism, and then his magazine, which is Sacred Hoop magazine. It's digital now, but it's good. And so I started noticing how he would talk about New Age, people just putting shamanic on everything, on all shamanic this, shamanic that, shamanic massage, shamanic Reiki. And he says, that's not the way it works, right? And I was starting to get grumblings of a similar energy, like, well, shamanism is what shamanism is. It's not all these other things. But I was still crafting the words and my thoughts around it. And so then, independently for me, I was starting to want to change my language, but not knowing what to change it to. So I started doing like shamanic animism. Maybe that would work. Maybe that would satisfy this thing in me that I'm feeling. And I did that for a little while. I started calling things eco spirituality, but not claiming animism completely yet. And it still felt intuitive shamanic animist was the name of my group for a while, that before it was Institute for the Shamanic Arts. And then I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. And this was in the 2000s. And then I started changing it. And, but one thing I noticed is that what people were searching for online was shamanism, shamanic, shaman. And so then it gets to be this tough spot, because if you start using other words that people aren't looking for, they're not going to find you. So people would be using the word that a lot of people are searching for. I get it. I understand, because people want to be found. And then I finally, Nick Breezewood kept talking in his ways. And then I stumbled onto a young white woman in California who then was charging $10,000 for a particular type of training. And that just blew me away. I'm like, what? Come on. And so I decided that I needed to change my language. I needed to change my language because I was influencing other people. And as a white-bodied person, I knew I needed to come at it differently. Although I will say, there are lots of words for the role of what some cultures call shaman, the one who goes in between the worlds, on behalf of others, the spirit world, the physical world, the dream world, and brings back helpful information or helpful actions, or goes to the spirit world on behalf of the physical world. I believe I was called to that role, but there's the particular name that I am not supposed to use for myself, because the name comes from Mongolian, Siberian cultures and their words, or it's been attributed to their words for that role. And since I have not been adopted into that lineage, and I have not been particularly or literally trained in that way, I needed to stop using the language. Now, I, as a white-bodied person, I'm not going to tell anyone of color what they're to do. I'm not talking to you. You do as you do. It works, okay? But for those of us with a colonized mind and a long time separation from these practices in our own lineages as European heritage people, I am talking to us, okay? So we need to be very careful. And I think there's a lot of room for imagining new names for these roles, and or reclaiming cultural ancestral lineage names that have been pushed underground or even eradicated because of domination in our past, and there's been a lot of it. So, all right. So then I think in 2017 to 2018, that's when I had that realization, like, I can't do this anymore. And so then I started thinking about, well, okay, if I'm going to change the language from shamanic to animist, okay, there's a loss there, because I had to change the website, I had to change the URL, the domain name, and that all cost money. And okay, but I felt like I needed to do that. And also for the practitioner role, because one of my main heartfelt places is providing a place for others who feel called to these intuitive roles to have a place to train, to practice, where you can be open about it, and it's not of a particular cultural tradition. And also from my own particular little flavor of how I come about this. So I wanted to change the name away from shamanic practitioner into what? Then what? I didn't have a name or a word for it. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, okay, something that I could be proud of, and that it doesn't infringe on anyone's cultural approach. It's important that we're not taking and appropriating language that really belongs to someone else in that particular iteration, right? There's lots of words. So like, let's say, smoke in a container or in a shell that you're smudging. Well, that's a particular cultural language. You could say smoke clearing. That's literal. That's not a particular cultural way of saying it. So I was thinking, okay, what do I want to call this training and these practitioners that I am and that I'm training other people to be? And I thought, well, what do? We bridge the worlds. We bridge the world between the spirit world and the physical world. So then I came up with Spirit Bridge. Spirit Bridge practitioners and Spirit Bridge trainings. And I thought, there, that describes what we do. It's a literal description, and it doesn't belong to someone else who has had a long ancestral relationship with a particular word, and also has experienced a lot of pain and trauma around the domination to get people to try to leave their traditions, right? So I say all that for you to give anyone who maybe is holding onto the side of the pool and not wanting to let go of this shamanic language. And I get it. It's the one that a lot of people are searching for, but we've got to be honorable. And we've got to be able to face ourselves and be authentic and appreciating of other cultures, but not taking. There's been enough taking. All of our animist ancestors have had almost everything taken from them. And then a number of those animist ancestors go and try to take others' stuff. Okay. The final thing I want to say is the difference between shamanic cultures and animist cultures. So considering that shamanic cultures are literal places around the planet that have access to this word. Now, there are other animist groups of people around the planet that call that role different names, right? There's a lot of other words besides shaman or shamanic or shamanism. But shamanism is from Mongolia, Siberia, that region. And so all the world's shamanic people are animists, are animist cultures, but not all animist cultures are shamanic. Animist cultures in other places around the planet likely have their own words, and there's lots of words depending on your ancestry. Look it up, search for it. You will find other words of that role of healer, of being a bridge between the worlds, in that culture. Okay. And there's lots of room for bringing new words to the space, because we are different people than our ancestors were. We have technology. We can think a message to someone half the world away and it gets there just about instantly. Like, these are ways that would be considered sorcery to our animist ancestors. And so there is room for coming up with new names or revitalized names for now going forward that are building on top of what we have direct access to within our ancestral lineage and being a human being. Because these roles show up around the planet in different ways in the biodiversity of humans, right? It's a consistency. It's a theme that runs through all humanity, that some people are picked by the spirit world, and that's another part of it, are picked by the spirit world. As Nick Breezewood says, it's not that they're special. It's like they're on a different branch of the tree than some other folks. It's like a unique little niche. And just like some people are absolutely picked to be an herbalist, to listen to the plants, or to be able to fix cars, that cars talk to them, right, about what's wrong with them. There's all kinds of being picked for a particular vocation, and it is a vocation. And so we're going forward into a whole new era, and we need to be freed of what is not appropriate, not helpful, holding us back. So if you've been holding on to that word or naming things that really are not shamanic, and I know there's going to be backlash about this. Oh, shamanic is whatever I say it is. Okay, it's not my business. I'm not the shamanic police, right? Of getting people busted or something or shamed for it, but I'm just sharing my own journey with it. This has been 26 years, 30 years in the making, and I feel at home where I am now. Like, I have direct access to the way I talk now and what I share with others, and that there's a lot of room in this path for a lot of diversity. And so I guess that's what I have to say about it now. Be kind in the comments if you have something to say, please. And many blessings to you in your path.